Hello, Apps here from Dimp Digital. Welcome to another edition of the Game Club. This time I'm joined by the miserable bastard himself, Mark Smith. Biff. Biff, how's it going?
Yeah, good. Thanks for that introduction.
That's all right, not a problem. I want to get another reaction from you. I was wondering if you'd have a little bite there, but you didn't. But I wanted to reel off a little stat for you. So many people know that nowadays we're primarily a audio only podcast. Back in the day we used to do a lot of video content, like when we first started out, but I guess we've found our comfort zone audio podcasting, and also the main reason really is because most people, yourself included, really only have a face for radio anyway, so putting out any sort of video was going to scare people off really. But we do post these to YouTube for what they're worth. I don't think if you're going to listen to a podcast, I think you listen to a podcast app, but people do still YouTube. So these automatically are linked to our feed and they are posted automatically without me having to do anything unless something goes wrong. And being a small audio only podcast, it means our views on YouTube nowadays are pretty diabolical. But according to the YouTube metrics, your review of Days Gone has the most views that we've had in 2019.
Well, the stats speak for themselves, don't they? People want to hear what I've got to say.
Yes, that's what the stats are saying. Do you want to have a guess at how many views that has? Just to either inflate or deflate your ego.
12.
It's double figures, so you weren't far off, but it's 64.
Well,
so you're well.
Does that mean they've watched the whole video, or have they just turned on and gone, "No, this isn't what I wanted"? Skip.
I can find that out, but I choose not to because I think that really would destroy morale within the group.
Right.
But
okay.
64 views. You're well on your way to YouTube superstardom.
Yeah.
For context, our highest viewed video ever was a review that I did of The Witcher 3 and its expansion pass. Do you care to hazard a guess at how many views that had, or has now?
I'll go 80.
No. A little bit higher.
120.
No. I'll give it to you because you're never going to get there. 17,000.
Fucking hell, really?
Yep, that's the sort of...
You'll be on a boxing promotion soon, won't you? Those sort of
stats. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that's really just an indication of how the mighty have fallen. So from 17,000 to 64, that's when our new range. No, I mean obviously our feed itself does okay because it's a podcast, but the YouTube stuff's dropped off. But I thought that was interesting, and that you'll lead, if you don't win anything this year, if it's the fantasy league or whatever, at least you have a chance of having the most views. So you can have a little trophy for that, maybe.
Claw back a little bit of pride.
Exactly. But we're here to talk about games, and primarily Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Just before we go into that, I did want to check in with you to see what you've been playing before Fallen Order come out, because during our conversations it felt like you were in a little bit of a holding pattern before Star Wars, waiting for it. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, basically, yeah.
So what have you gone back and played? I know you was playing Red Dead Redemption. You had a little go at Control and bits and pieces. Is there anything else that sprung out to you, or any criticisms or opinions you want to level at those two?
Yeah, so Control was pretty good. I couldn't understand what was going on, but the actual mechanics and the gameplay was pretty decent. But The story just fucking lost me. But it looked pretty good. And I sold my Xbox because I wasn't playing it. Yeah, that's gone. And I thought I'll bank that money in a game account, and hopefully that will help me buy the next console that comes out next year. And then I bought Red Dead on PS4, and that's pretty much up to date. You're up to date now.
Have you replayed all through Red Dead, or did you get halfway through and stop, or what have you been doing on it?
Yeah, so I got about halfway through.
Okay.
Yeah, probably about halfway through. I've still got quite a bit to go. He's only just started coughing, poor Arthur. And yeah, and then I binned it because Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order come out.
So was Red Dead as good as you remembered, or was it a bit of a stinker going back, or was it better? Anything worse, or about as you remembered it? It's been under a year, or about a year, give or take, actually.
I mean, it's still amazing. The only thing is when you start, because I'd completed it obviously on Xbox.
Yeah.
You have everything. You have all your skills, your good horses, all the good weapons. And when you go back to a fucking cattleman pistol, it's like, oh, here we go. It does. You do have to sort of go, oh, I've got to put in another just 10 hours just to get up to a decent standard. But yeah, once you got through that little glut, it's epic, really good stuff. And I'm trying to do it differently. So I was a goody two shoes last time, but I'm just shooting every person in sight to see how that plays out in the story.
Has it made much difference? Like, I know it's one thing I had kind of in hindsight annoyed me about Red Dead is I do want to do a playthrough like that, but the bounty system would mean that I felt like I'll have no money all the time because you can't get away with anything. So how's it been sort of just murdering people? Have you been snagged up by the law quite a lot and lost a shitload of money, or is it panning out all right?
Yeah, at one point I think I had like $860.
Jesus, that's loads in that game.
Yeah,
especially early on.
Just in one place, and then I had like 500 in another, I think. I like to go on YouTube and find where there were gold bars because I couldn't do the game. Every time I walked out the camp, I just got shot. So I had to go and cheat, find some gold bars, sell the gold bars, and then it got me back to a level playing field. But I've realised that when you're horrible, if you just make sure that if you commit a crime, just kill everything in sight,
right,
you will get away with it.
Okay,
that's the best way to do it.
So no police can see it, but if you kill all the witnesses before the police arrive, or if anyone else arrives, you won't get snarled up.
No, but it does get out of hand because the body count gets quite high, and then before you know it, you've travelled 500 yards. And
dragging bodies into ditches and scattered all over the place.
It's not as easy, this mass murdering stuff, as they make out.
No, it's not. Anyway, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. So it's going to be, it sounds like if they do another one, it'll be Star Wars Jedi something else. So that's what they're going for. It's a Star Wars Jedi series potentially. We're going to try and tread around any story spoilers because just when we were speaking offline, it sounds like you're quite near the end, or you potentially near the end. You're deep into it. I'm probably about 6 or 7 hours into it, but I do want to talk about level design and combat and the lightsaber upgrades. So for people that don't want to know anything about that or what might be in store for abilities or bits and pieces that you can pick up, then bail out now. This is your only warning, Adkins. So before we get started with Fallen Order, we've had Star Wars Battlefront and Star Wars Battlefront 2. Yep. They've been released since EA took over like the publishing rights, so they're responsible for marketing and assigning a team to develop them, and it seems like it's an exclusive thing. What have you made of their previous efforts with the Battlefront games? Because didn't you recently play through the campaign of Battlefront 2? Yeah,
I did. Yeah, it's I don't really like multiplayer games because I'm old and I can't deal with how good people are online. But if you like Star Wars, they really sort of all the sound effects, the machines, the guns, everything is really, really true to the sort of Star Wars universe. So it is good if you're a bit of a fanboy. Yeah. It is really good, and just little droids running around and things like that. They make little noises, it reminds you of the film, and so I did quite enjoy the campaign. But it's quite a short, obviously, campaign, and you really buy Battlefront to play multiplayer online. You don't really buy it for the campaign, do you? But
no, yeah. I mean, the first one didn't even have a campaign, so you had to play multiplayer. Whereas at least they did run the second one, so they've been shit on a little bit, but it sounds like I do agree with you that it feels like a Star Wars game in the sense that all the characters, the sound effects, the music seems spot on. I think not that they're not spot on in Fallen Order, but it feels like they're going for their own style, whereas the Battlefront games were leaning quite heavily on the source material in using like the main theme and whatnot. I've heard little glimpses of the theme in Fallen Order, but not a lot of it. Maybe that'll come later. Would you be willing to go out on a limb and say that Fallen Order is the best Star Wars game in recent times? If we just compare it to the Battlefront games,
it's hard because I did play Battlefront online and play a few games online, and there's a few 60, so the big battles where it's like 60 versus 60. When you get dropped into one of those online, and it is like being it's amazing. There's people on 3 or 4 different types of vehicle, 30 people charging over a hill, then lasers and explosions, and then they've got people riding vehicles towards you, and it really does feel fantastic. And you do feel like you're in a real Star Wars battle, but if you're into that sort of multiplayer thing, then that would be epic. But if you're into a campaign, then obviously this is a lot better. So I don't know if it's quite hard to say if this is the best. Do you know what I mean, sort of thing?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So it sounds like if you're into multiplayer, Battlefront's got you covered. If you're into a campaign, this potentially might get you covered.
Yeah.
What got you sniffing around this? Because for me, it's mainly because the people that developed it, Respawn Entertainment, developed it. They've done Titanfall, they've done Titanfall 2. I loved those two games. I had a bit of a cup of coffee with Apex Legends, which they released earlier this year, like the little battle royale game. I think for the likes of Adkins and me, who kind of at times live and breathe gaming a bit too much, like we know a lot of the developers and what they've done previously, we were primarily interested because of the pedigree of Respawn, so we know they can deliver in making a great game. I'm making the assumption that wasn't the primary reason for you, that you didn't really have much to do with Titanfall or Apex. It's more of either two things. One, that it's a Star Wars game, so I'll give it a go, or they've done a good job at marketing it and drew you in with that, or perhaps word of mouth hype.
It was just because it's a Star Wars game and that's what dragged me in.
I've never played shit dressed up.
Yeah, really could have. I've never played Titanfall. I've never played Apex, so I didn't know anything about that. But yeah, I just really like Star Wars. So, and I did see a few of the videos, and I have obviously seen it online and been advertising that, and it did look good. And they did, I suppose, market it in a way that made me want to go out and buy it. But I was interested when I just quite like Star Wars, and it looked a little bit like Force Unleashed.
Yes.
So I quite enjoyed those two games. So yeah, that's what sort of drew me into it, basically.
Yeah. I mean, at a high level, we'll delve into things in detail. What do you think of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order? Is it good, bad, indifferent, all right, excellent? What sort of category are we looking at before we get into the details?
Yeah, it's good. I'm really enjoying it. It's nothing like Force Unleashed.
Right.
It's completely different, much harder. I know a lot of people have been saying it's like Dark Souls.
Yes, or Bloodborne. Yeah.
I've never played. I had a little go on Bloodborne, but we know how that ended.
Well, yeah, we got to Father Gascoigne and babied it off.
Exactly. But I've never played Dark Souls. But it is good, and it's not just like tap the button as fast as you can, and you'll eventually fight your way through.
No,
you can get killed by absolutely anything if you go in half-assed.
Fucking oversized goats knocking me off things.
Exactly, the goats are one of the hardest things. There's rats, slugs, all sorts, and if they catch you off guard and you're not sort of paying attention, you'll just get killed by everything.
Yeah, it does share a few similarities with either Dark Souls or the Bloodborne games. I think there's a few things where the similarities sit. There's one in how you level up. So you have an XP bar that you get for killing enemies or discovering secrets. But if you die before that gets to a new level, you lose that XP temporarily. And to get it back, you have to travel back to that location and attack that enemy that killed you or an enemy nearby. And you'll get the XP back. But the key thing is that you can lose that XP if you die before you get back there. That's a very Bloodborne / Dark Souls type thing, although with those games you can cash the XP in at any time, so you might carry around 5,000, you can cash it in before hitting a level, if that makes sense, whereas in Fallen Order you have to have got the level ticked over to put it in. And then the other thing I've noticed is that when you die, or if you decide to meditate at a save point, which is basically a bonfire or a lamp in the Dark Souls Bloodborne world, all the enemies respawn and you have to fight the same enemies again, so they all come back. I think it excludes the mini bosses, like the ones that have little names, because we was talking about a frog on one of the very first sort of planet, and he's not come back since I've gone back. But I think all the general enemies will come back if you were to die, or if you decide to meditate. And meditating refills your health. It's where you can rest and refill your health stimps, things like that. So you will need to do that from time to time because you'll just run out. And the final thing is, like you mentioned, the difficulty. We're both playing this on the second from top level, and it feels fairly punishing. Like you said, you can die quickly and get overwhelmed if you're not careful. And it can be a pain in the arse sometimes, but that's the hand we kind of dealt ourselves by going one off the top. I guess my question is, what's keeping you engaged where the likes of like Bloodborne, turned you off, you probably played 5 hours of that tops, and then thought, well, this is not for me. Whereas what's keeping you engaged with Fallen Order, where it's a game that's difficult, it has similar mechanics, and I guess the main thing is it's based in Star Wars universe.
Yeah, there is the fact that it's based in the Star Wars. That does help. It doesn't feel as hard as what Bloodborne did. I don't know why, but I feel like this is a little bit like although there's similarities, it seems a bit softer.
It tells you where to go for one.
Yeah, that helps. It tells you what buttons to push.
yeah. Bloodborne, Dark Souls, you get 0 tutorial, and then it doesn't even tell you where to go. So you can spend hours going down a dead end and get into an optional boss and not knowing what to do. So it's much more easier to just play, I guess. But is there anything else other than that that's kind of kept you in it? No, I'm just enjoying it. I mean, I'm a bit of a Star Wars nerd, and I do just like pretending I'm a Jedi. You know what I mean? Like, fighting stormtroopers and things like that. That's basically it. It's got quite a good balance in the setting we've got it on. I think where it's hard, but it's doable. It's just that very fine line. It's not, you don't get disheartened by it, but you're not, breezing through levels. So, I think we've got it on the right level at the moment. Yeah, because like you mentioned earlier, you can't just spam the buttons and get through it. Now, I don't know how easy or hard it is on the lower levels, but I think second from the top's a good one, because it if you look on the screen where you choose, it kind of shows you what the parry time is, damage, things like that. And the one we've got, I keep forgetting what it's called. It's like Jedi Master or some...
Yeah, Jedi Master.
Jedi Master we've got it on. I think Grandmaster's the top one.
Yeah.
But all the bars that change the difficulty are all even. So I think that's kind of like where it's designed to go in on, because it's balanced in that way. But yeah, you have to. It's not. I think people might go into this game seeing the trailers and think, "Oh, it's Star Wars. I'll go and play that," and not be prepared for the hell that might await them if they're thinking they can just button mash their way through.
Yeah, I do think it's a bit odd though, because it's sort of. I wouldn't want to say. I don't know if children would be able to play it, but it's sort of aimed at children because there's not a lot of swearing in it. Although you have a lightsaber, we've discussed that you can't decapitate sort of stormtroopers and humans.
Yeah.
But it's quite a complicated game. You couldn't just pick it up and just button smash it. You'd have to learn the routines of the enemies and things like that. So it seems quite a strange sort of way in what the game, because obviously Dark Souls and Bloodborne are aimed at a sort of an older audience, aren't they?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But this feels like it's aimed at a younger audience, but it'd be quite a complicated game for someone young to play without shitting on the youth, sort of thing.
Maybe because there are 4 options, and I think we're on the third highest. Maybe the easier ones turn it more into a button mashing game.
Yeah, maybe.
But it's still things like the design of the levels, which we'll get onto, and the puzzles and things that aren't always easy. Like getting in and around the levels, you kind of have to use your head sometimes. But I think it's good to have the difficulty level, because I think the one thing that's pissed people off with Dark Souls and Bloodborne is they're always like, oh, they're making the game they want to make, and it's like, yeah, it's fine, but it does just turn people off because it's brutally hard. Whereas Fallen Order has a balance to it where you can, if you are struggling, you can turn it down.
Yeah.
So you've got the option to actually get through the game if you want to, and they've not pitched it as, oh, you have to be an elite game to play this to get through it and things like that. It's meant to be enjoyable, so it's just finding what's right for you.
Yeah,
and giving that option there. Whereas I think you can't do that with Bloodborne or Dark Souls. You're either good enough or you're not, and that will obviously turn people off. Combat, lightsabers, force powers. Does this game do a good job of giving you control of the lightsaber? Because it seems like the dream thing to have in a game, be able to control a lightsaber and take people's fucking... Well, you can't take their heads off. You can cut animals in half, but you can't cut someone's head off. But do they do a good job of replicating what you feel like a lightsaber would be good to use in a game environment? Yeah,
I think they do a pretty good job of it. It's... again, sort of sound effects and things like that are pretty basic, but they get everything quite right. When you have like a light attack, when you fight someone that's a bit harder, they have like a video. It sort of cuts, and then they block to exactly how your lightsaber moves, because it'll always do the same. The first 3 buttons you push are always the same movement.
Yeah.
So it does look quite good. It's sort of, for that split second, it really looks like the person you're fighting is reacting to how the lightsaber moves. So, yeah, it does do quite a good job of it, and I like a lot of the powers. I don't want to go into too much detail because I don't know what you've unlocked, but there's obviously various ways, and as you get more powerful, someone that would have been a real struggle at the beginning is a lot easier to sort of dispatch of, basically, because of force powers. But you can't just use force powers, because you have like a little bar.
Yes.
And that, once that's depleted, you can't use sort of push and pull and things like this and special attacks. And then you just go back to pushing square to do your light attacks. And then if you hit enough light attacks, it builds your force bar back up, and then you can use the force again. So it's quite a good balance of the two together, I think.
Yeah. How are you finding because because I wasn't expecting it to be as involved as it was, I kind of didn't use the parrying for a little while, and then I got stuck trying to kill something. I was like, why do I keep fucking dying? It's because I wasn't parrying. I was almost scared to parry, because I thought if they get near me and hit me, I'll die. That sort of mentality. But how are you finding a game which uses a parrying system, which is quite key to defeating a lot of the enemies, because you can't just smash through them. You've got to wait for them to attack, take a step back and try and time it, and then finish them off with a parry sort of combo.
Yeah, I quite like it. It's good. I was the same. I didn't really use a lot of the parry, and I kept using the roll to dodge out the way.
Yeah.
But it rolls you so far away from the enemy.
Can't get at them again.
Yeah, you can't get at them and never reset, and it's like, oh, what am I going to do about this? But I did probably wasn't until about halfway through the game, not that I completed it, but I decided to start using the parry. So yeah. But it is good. I mean, you've got the parry and the block are two different things, because you can just hold the block button.
Yes. And
you can't get hit unless they do like an attack which will break your block, which is shown by them flashing red.
Yeah.
But your block, you can only block for so long, because then you have a block bar, and then that depletes as well, and you have to. So it's quite a good sort of balance. It does make you think. It's not just, and I suppose it's quite realistic, because if you sort of was a Jedi and you buy into it, you're meant to be sort of quite patient and calm, and you're not meant to be an aggressor. And I suppose this makes you sort of wait for them to come to you, and you react on how they react, instead of just sort of like the Force Unleashed, where you just go hell for leather, smashing through everything in sight and cutting everything in half. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. I like the fact that it's got a stamina bar as well, and it's got a block bar, so you can't just use one attack and get through it. Like, you really do have to use a lot of to slow them down, or use the force push or pull, or one of your special attacks that you've unlocked. Like, you have to really mix it up for a lot of the enemies to take advantage of when they're weak. And that's one of the things I've enjoyed, is whenever you meet a new enemy or a new type of enemy, nearly every time I will die to them at some point. If there's more than one of them, I definitely will. I might get lucky the first time, but the second one will kill me. And I've enjoyed, I think you mentioned it when we were speaking the other day, that you've enjoyed kind of bumping into a new enemy type and then having to learn how to beat that enemy using the tools that you've got.
Yeah.
But, go on.
Yeah, it is good. It's just sometimes it doesn't give you a lot of help, and you have to sort of work it out, and it can be a bit annoying if you've just come from a meditation area, you've gone quite far, and then you think, well, I've got to die now to learn how to beat this person. Then you die and have to start again. That's the only thing. Sometimes I wish there was like a little, I don't know, I suppose they couldn't really do a tutorial, but just I don't really know how they'd get around it. But that's the only thing I found a little bit frustrating, that you sort of have to learn by dying, basically.
Yeah, it's a pain in the arse, because it doesn't, at least on the Xbox One X, which I'm playing, it doesn't load the quickest when you die.
No, it doesn't either on PS4.
Especially if you keep dying over and over, you're like, fuck me. And you're sitting there waiting for it, getting pissed off with it. It's not ideal. I guess one of the things that they can do to mitigate that, I haven't had this much of an issue with it yet, but it might come later, is the meditation points, or the save points. As long as they're close to an enemy like that, or an area like that, it kind of doesn't make it as difficult or as annoying, because you haven't got to travel as far. But I'm sure there's going to be areas that I get 2/3 of the way through and then keep dying on, and it's like a 10-minute slog to get back there. I'm not looking forward to that, but
yeah, that's the only thing.
That's the kind of trade-off you have to have, and I do wish the load times were a little bit quicker, but that's life. So yeah, the way the levels operate are quite interesting because each level is essentially a planet. Like you've got a ship that you can fly around in. You don't physically fly around in the ship itself, but you can choose a planet to go on, and then go off and explore it, and that's it. You'll be set down. You'll be able to sort of explore it at your leisure. But it seems like there is sort of a linear path through the main campaign or the main part of it, but there are sort of optional paths and shortcuts that you can unlock by using certain abilities. But I guess what I've enjoyed about it is that when you first land on a planet, you can probably only get through about 60% of it at tops because you haven't got the relevant power or ability. So you can't fully explore the planet on the first run. And I've enjoyed opening up more parts of the planets, learning new abilities, going down paths that I couldn't go down previously and finding out what secrets or what's there before. But how are you finding this? Because one thing that might get a bit long in the tooth as you play it more, and you have played a lot more than me, is that it encourages a little bit of backtracking and revisiting areas that you've already been to. How is that? How are you finding this sort of the way the levels are designed, that it's encouraging going through old areas and opening up new paths?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it, to be honest with you. I like the way it's laid out. I like the fact that it's not, you don't just go to a planet and you can just clear it from the second you get there. You know, you have to go back and then find new things and unlock abilities to get to certain bits of it. I quite like that sort of aspect of it. The only thing I found as I've got further and further into the game, the planets are a lot bigger and there's a lot more to them than what you first think.
Yeah.
And you sort of, they're leveled, so they're like top floor down to like level 4. I found it more and more difficult to navigate round it, even with the map, because you're sort of sliding down slides, jumping, and then there's a big gap in the map and you think, was that where I go? And then you realise that's not the way to go. Then you have to work all the way back up, and that is a little bit, the traversal of it can be a bit frustrating. But that's quite a minor thing. The actual, if you're trying to play the campaign and you're not too interested in finding every little nook and cranny in the level, they're laid out, fantastic. I think they're fairly obvious where you have to go. There's certain puzzles which keep you sort of thinking and ticking over. Different ways of traversing, like wall running and rope swinging and zip lining and all this sort of thing. But that's my only little gripe with it. As I've got into it, when you look on, because you have a little hologram map, and it'll have a little red door to show that that's blocked. You don't own the necessary power or whatever it is to open it, but it goes green if you have. And to try and get to that little green door, you have to it's just aggro. It can be really real aggro. Like today, I've been on it for about 2 hours, and honestly, it was just trying to get to one little green door, and I've managed to do it, but that is how long it took me. And then you've got the whole frustration thing of dying and then getting to save it because you're not concentrating on what you're doing. You're just trying to wait your way through the map. I've died and had to go all the way back, and it was honestly about 20 minutes back I had to go, and I was like, oh fucking hell. But that's just me being stupid and not saving it in a meditation point I should have done. But yeah, that's my little gripe.
Yeah, that's the thing. Again, like Control did this. It's a similar type of game in that you kind of unlock more of like the building or the world as you go. But Control also relied on you manually saving or manually going to control points, and I didn't like that because, like there's an example right, you just forget. Yeah, you forget. You've already gone over this part of the map. You just run past it and you forget. And then you die, and it takes you back to the last time you manually sat down and had a shit or whatever he's doing at the meditation point. I don't know what he's doing, and I don't know how long he's meditating for, to be honest, because everyone's coming back to life. I don't know what's going on with the darkness and the lightness. There's no story, as far as I can figure out, as to why people magically come back, but we have to ignore it because it's a video game. But yeah, that's, again, caution. It will not. There's no safety net there. You forget to save and you don't do it for a while. You run the risk of A, losing your XP, and then B, having to travel back through to that you've done before. The only concession they do give is that if you find a collectible during the way or a little unlockable bit, then that stays with you. You don't lose that. So going back and forth, that's absolutely key. But yeah, manual saving required. And the other good thing, actually, this is just a completely random thought, something that there's a real pain in the arse for Bloodborne and Dark Souls. You fall off a cliff in Bloodborne or Dark Souls, or the edge of the world, you die. That's it. There's no comeback from it. Whereas in this, it takes probably about, I don't know, 1/8 of your life off, and then just sort of respawns you nearby.
Yeah,
and
that's quite handy.
It is handy because that's one of the few safety nets they do give out, and I think that's imperative because there's nothing worse than falling off a world and dying because of that, and being able to restart is handy, I think.
Another thing you'll find that you haven't found yet, and I won't give too much away, but basically when you revisit a planet, to make it interesting and keep you sort of on your toes, they will introduce an enemy that's like a little mini boss.
Yeah, that wasn't there before. So, nice. And it might not be there. If you die, it might not be there next time. It's just completely random encounters. It's not like, oh, I'll go back and I'll kill him this time. He might not be there that time. So when you're trying to just wander around and try and find that little green door, there might be a fucking double-arsed bloke there that's going to make your life hell. You die, go back, and then you think, right, I'm ready for him. He's not even there this time. But in a way, I do quite like it, but I don't like it when I die. No, it's one of those things. It is annoying. I mean, it definitely gives me frustrations. Like when those goats were killing me yesterday, I was getting really fucked off because they're goats.
Yeah,
Jedi shouldn't die to a goat, and it was happening so quickly. And it was all. And you know what? It's always my fault because I was trying to rush.
Yeah,
rather than just taking the 2 seconds it takes just to parry it, I was trying to steam in and finish him off before they had a chance to fucking get me. And no, they'd knock me over, hit me twice, and I was dead. And I lost a load of XP because I was pissing around in one area for ages.
That's the thing. I think they sort of lower you because it's a goat. There's another one where there's some like little flies and spiders and things like that. You think, oh, it's only a goat or it's only a spider, and you think, oh, I'll just breeze through that. But you won't. So nothing is breathable. Everything can kill you. It's all deadly.
No, exactly. You mentioned the map, and I think although it is difficult to traverse some of the areas at times because you can't always figure out what path to go on and whatnot because they're quite complex, these levels. I think people will be surprised at how deep they go. But I think having the red doors and the green doors is a lifesaver because there's nothing worse than when you play these games and you're standing at a door and you think, oh, I don't know if I can get through this or not, and you're there with your thumb up your arse trying to think, oh, have I just not jumped on it right or things like that. This, Fallen Order will say yes, no. If it's green, you can go for it. If it's red, you haven't got the power, so don't waste your time.
Yeah.
Because I'm one of those people that hates missing things. So even if I couldn't get through something, I would genuinely keep trying, thinking it must be me, just not doing it right, and then having to give up. And this just gives me a clear indication. It's like, no, piss off and come back later, which I enjoy for sure. We haven't talked about the story really because I don't think it's necessary. But I've played probably between 5 and 7 hours. We'll say I spent quite a while on Sunday, but I've got a feeling that, and I don't know if it's right or wrong, but I've got a feeling it's starting to already or going to suffer a little bit because of the style of game it is, because I've spent long periods without progressing the main story, just exploring the planet or the world, and I think it's got a little bit disjointed. Like I forget what I'm doing whilst I'm there and whatnot. God of War had a similar structure. It wasn't as big as in scope or whatnot, but I always felt like because you had Atreus with you or the head with you, there was always something back and forth with the story and whatnot. How have you found, without obviously giving away anything of the story side of things, how have you found playing Fallen Order and the story with the type of game it is, that it seems like a lot of the focus is on the gameplay and the mechanics and the levels and finding the secrets and whatnot?
Yeah, the story's okay. I mean, there's obviously one strip of story basically, which is the main bit, and then as you go through it's not as easy to find, and then it's the bit that skews off, but there's always one continuous line and you sort of skew off of it, and it's the skew offs that I sort of lose interest in. The actual story is actually a story from Star Wars. It's from sort of the Phantom Menace to Revenge of the Sith, is it? That the last one, is it, in the prequel 3? Yeah, so it's actually to do with that. It links in with that story there, basically. So it's actually a real story from Star Wars films, and this is just something, obviously, that wasn't on the films, but how it affected you as a Jedi. So it is quite interesting. But yeah, like I say, there's sort of little bits where you come off the story and then I think, I've sort of lost interest a little bit here. We've spoken about one of the main characters as well, which is like one of your friends, how she doesn't look right. And every time I see her, I just think, how have they let this go? How has someone okayed that at the studio? And gone,
There's a bloke with 4 arms on the ship, though.
But he's an alien.
Well, that's true. Is she not?
Well, she fucking looks like one. But
you tell the audience what your problem is with her.
Her eyes look like they're popping out of her head. Basically, they don't look like. I don't know. I can imagine they've drawn the skull up on their computer-generated computers or whatever, and the eyes just haven't sunk in enough into her head. They've popped out, and they just need to put some data in and make them go back into her head because it looks fucking weird. It really does, and it freaks me out. So everybody said it as well. Like we spoke to Adkins, you noticed it. It's not as if you go, oh, which one is it? If I went, oh, it's the bird with the eyes popping out her head, you go, oh, yeah, it's her. Fucking hell. They are popping out her head.
They are way too big. I'm trying to look up the lady's name to find out if she looks like that genuinely. Her name's Cere, isn't it? Cere, I think.
Right. I can't remember now.
Well, real name's Deborah Wilson. I can confirm, this is just Wikipedia pictures, her eyes look normal.
Right. So what have they done?
If I was her, and because they do normally face scan these people, I would be asking for my money back, to be honest.
Yeah, that is not a representation of any human I've seen.
No, they are way too big, and that's an annoyance. But she seems like an alright cat. I quite like the little fella, the little alien fella, Grease, who's like your pilot.
Yeah, I like him.
He's a little bit of comedy relief. I like whoever's acting that is pretty good. And we play as someone called Cal, and basically, the basic setup for Fallen Order is that Cal is a Jedi. So immediately I was pleased because I was worried that it would be one of those stories where you're Cal for 4 hours wandering around doing what Cal does normally, and he doesn't know he's got the Force, and then he discovers it, and then he has to train up from the ground up, yada, yada, yada. I was worried that we'd spend ages just establishing that he's a Jedi. I'm glad that it was Cal who is a Jedi and he's hiding because at this point in the Star Wars universe, they're being hunted and wiped out. So he's had to not use any of his Force powers for 4 or 5 years or whatever it is. And he's aware he's a Jedi, but he's just hiding it because he'll get slaughtered for it. And I was pleased that it's essentially your cover gets blown, and it's time to rebuild the Jedi Order and start busting out the lightsaber almost, not immediately, but within, quick order, and take some fucking heads off.
Yeah. Fair enough.
You can't take the heads off.
Well, you can't, no, but you can take goat horns off.
I think the reason they did that is so that it got the age rating like lower than I think it's like teen or whatever that equivalent is. So if you could take someone's head off, let me just grab the case, I'll see what it is. But if you could take the head off, it would
knock it up, wouldn't it?
It would knock it up. Yeah, it's a 16. So I don't know.
That seems pretty poor then, really, doesn't it? If it's 16.
Yeah, I think you should be able to fucking rip their head off.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure in horror films that are 15s, that's going on.
Yeah.
Oh, but you're not playing it. They'll do it in real. There's no lightsabers for people to do it with. You cunts.
You don't. We said you didn't even need to see blood or anything. You just You could just cauterize the wound immediately and just chop the arm off. That'd make it so much better. And you stab them. There's little bits where the lightsaber goes through one side of them and all the way through the other. So I don't know.
They're happy with that.
Yeah,
they're happy with that for sure. I don't. Yeah, I mean, I reckon on PC there'll be a mod out at some point that enables dismemberment.
Bastards.
You'll see. Yeah, I know. It's not ideal, is it? But that's what happens, unfortunately. One thing I wanted to touch on is the secrets that you can find and the customization that you get for Cal in terms of like what he wears, and also your lightsaber as well. You can get different components and bits and pieces. So you've got skins for Cal, you've got skins for his poncho, which you don't like any of the ponchos. It sounds like
no.
You hate all those. Did you not just take it off?
Yeah, I just take them off. I don't even have one on. Yeah, I've got about 1,500. Well, not about 30. Just sat there doing nothing. I don't put them on.
So you can find those from exploring and whatnot, and they're just cosmetics. You can get different lightsaber parts, which you can make the whatever I don't know what you fucking call it, the handle or whatever, look differently and whatnot. Have you enjoyed doing that part of it, at least building your own lightsaber, or was that a small thing that you just kind of binned off and carried on with the standard?
I normally, when you move planet, you go to your ship called the Mantis, and on there there's a little lightsaber thing, and you can have a look and change the colour if you want to, and the handles and bits like that. I've done it a little bit. It doesn't really bother me that much. You can change the colour of the handle and bits like that. It's not something that's overly impressed me. It's just like a little thing. If you're into it, I suppose you can make your sort of lightsaber look like somebody else's lightsaber. I don't know, Darth Vader or Luke Skywalker or something, if you've got all the right components. But yeah, and then you've got your little robot as well, BD1.
Yes.
You can change the colour of him, and then the ship as well. You can unlock different paint jobs for the ship as well. Yeah. So they make no difference to the game at all. It's just how you want your character to look, and sort of aesthetics. But it's it's a nice little detail, but it's not going to change your world.
Yeah, and you are rewarded with in-game stuff as well. Like if you go off the beaten path and find little secrets, you'll be rewarded with, I don't know, you might be rewarded with an upgrade to your stimp pack, which is like your health
med kits, aren't they?
Med kits, yeah. So rather than BD1 carrying one of them, you can build that up if you go off and find the relevant parts. You get XP for finding these things called echoes, which are basically fucking bit of cutlery that's been left out, and Cal uses the Force to memorize or to look at what happened and that, and it gives you a little codex entry, and you get little bits and pieces for that as well. And also, if you do put the time in to go back and explore certain planets, and this may be something that people don't want to hear. I mean, you've had enough listening without much being spoiled, but I wanted to talk about it because I didn't expect this to be in the game, and it's completely missable as well. Like I can see why it took you a while to find it, and why Adkins seemingly hasn't found it already. I found it literally as soon as I came off the first planet, because I've been going back and unlocking all the bits that I couldn't get to before. But by going off the beaten path, exploring, revisiting planets, we found ourselves in the possession of a dual lightsaber.
Yes, double-ended.
So I think Darth Maul.
Yep.
I think the woman that's kind of hunting you, this like the second sister, I think she might have one as well.
Yeah, she does.
So that's a tip off that they're in the game. So that is there if you put two and two together. But you get possession of one, and this, in theory, like it's quite early. Like you've only got to do the first planet and go back. So it's within under sort of 10 hours easily, and you can have that. I've not played with it too much. I literally got it and I was like, whoa, this is amazing. A load of little fucking rats come in, I've carved them up, and then I saved it. But did you use the two-ended lightsaber, or did you stock, I'm going to use the single classical one? So
the single classical one is more powerful, and the double one is not as powerful, but it's good if there's a lot of people. So if there's it's sort of a crowd control sort of thing, and then as you unlock skills, certain skills will upgrade it to make it even better in crowd control. They both have their purpose. I mean, you don't need either one of them. You could play the whole game with a single, or you could play the whole game with a double, but it's just a cool little thing that you can just push a button and then the other end lights up as well, which is quite cool.
No, I was surprised to see that you get possession of it that early, but it seems like it's going to be a useful tool. And you can flick between the two of them by using the left or right D-pad, so you can choose which, I don't know, mode that you put it in. You said you saw it in the control scheme anyway. They had lightsaber mode, and you was like, well, that's something.
Giving it away, yeah.
So that's that. The other thing I like, we spoke a little bit about BD1, but I love the fact that he is responsible for telling me when there's something to scan.
Yeah, I like that as well. Yeah, I like that.
Because there's so many games where they have all this optional stuff that you can find, you can pick up, but you might use a ping, you might use like a eagle vision or something like that, and that's your way of telling if there's something there for you to sort of go and investigate. And what I find you do is you run around pressing whatever button that is sort of every 10 seconds. You do it subconsciously. You constantly just put on eagle vision, or you constantly hit your radar ping out just to see if you've missed anything. And I love the fact that this time No, BD1. If you walk past something, he'll get off and be like, "Boop," and then you can go over there and do it. So you haven't got to sit there pressing whatever it is, L1, L2, whatever it might be, over and over again just to try and find the secrets. He will seek them out for you.
Yeah, it's a really good idea because it just doesn't distract from the game. You can just concentrate. And as soon as he jumps off your back, it's like having a little dog. You just think, oh, what's he found? And then you just walk over there and it's done, isn't it? Yeah, I know what you mean. I remember playing Assassin's Creed and just tapping that Eagle Vision constantly just to see if I'd missed anything. And you just sort of think, fucking hell, I feel like I'm in a rave because it just changes all the colours, doesn't it? It ruins it.
Yeah, I remember the Dragon Age Inquisition had it, and it was, I think you'd hold down the right, might have been the right analog stick, and it would ping, like this like radar ping would come out from your feet like on the screen and then go out, and it would like highlight things. I thought that's a decent way of doing it because it's not changing the screen like we said with Eagle Vision, or even like The Witcher that had hunter mode or whatever he had it called. But this now, having a companion that will do it for you, seems like the way forward if it's possible.
Yeah, definitely.
And BD1 is a good boy to have. Although I will say he's in charge of healing you, so you don't auto regen health. I don't know if there's a power actually that you get later on, but I haven't found it. You have to rely on the medikits or the stim packs, and he can carry only a set number. That depends on what skills you've unlocked or what secrets you found, whether you found any upgrades for it or whatnot. But my criticism of him is that there have been times in battle when I've asked him to heal me, and in order to do that, you have to stop and then heal, and it's almost it might even be half a second, but the amount of times I've died before the healing's got in is quite high now. So I'm wondering if it's me that I should actually be more careful, like slow them down then heal like it says to, or whether actually the game should be a little bit more forgiving and let me heal whilst I'm on the go.
Well, I've found that it's quite difficult as well. I've read online, I don't know if this is a bit of a cheat, if you go to the settings and turn down the visuals,
right,
it changes the frame rate and it doesn't look as good, but it speeds the game up.
Yeah,
if that
runs at a higher frame rate.
Yeah, and then when you're blocking and things like that, it's meant to make it easier, and healing and things like that, it gives you that split second back.
Yes.
And parrying as well.
Yes, yeah,
but
it will do.
I tried it for about half hour, and my PlayStation crashed twice. So I don't know if that's I don't know what to make of it. So
it's a PlayStation 4 Pro, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh dear.
So
I've had no crashes on the Xbox, but I haven't tried that performance mode yet. Because there's two modes. One is performance mode, which is like lower resolution but higher frames, so it runs a bit quicker and gives you, in games that require timing, that can be really useful.
Yeah.
And then there's the standard mode, which is like resolution, so it runs at 30 or whatever. That's interesting that can help out. I didn't think of that even being an option. It's not really a cheat; it's part of the game. But
yeah, well, when you play a boss,
now,
you might go, fuck it, I'm gonna have to just just to see if it can give me a little split second.
So you've used it a few times, have you?
Yeah, I only used it once, and literally the last time I played it, I used it because I was facing someone quite hard, and I don't know if it made any difference, but it crashed, and then I turned it off, and I was like, oh fuck it. So when I turn it back on, I'll see what's what.
No, well, that's one little tip for people if they're struggling. Maybe have a little look at that. We're talking about some of the ideas that they've put into this one, i.e., like the level design, and going back over old paths, unlocking new bits and pieces. Is there any other games that you feel like they could? I'm going to use The Last of Us Part 2. So that's been delayed, like May now, whenever it is next year. Would you like to see them stick to what they've done previously, where it's quite linear? You work from A to B, like story focus and whatnot. Or would you encourage them to look outside the box with some of the gameplay and the level design to have areas that are a little bit more free-forming, and you can unlock maybe tools or upgrade tools to get through, I don't know, like a doorway you can get through to before? Or are these ideas only good for certain types of games?
I don't know, it's difficult really, isn't it? I mean, The Last of Us to me is like the perfect game, so I'm trying to improve on the perfect.
Out with it.
Yeah, I'm trying to improve on the perfect game. I suppose I have enjoyed going back through it and doing it, so I can imagine it would bring something to the game. I don't know if they will do it though because of the way the game is.
Yeah.
Because then, if you went through a settlement and killed all the humans, you'd then go back, and would it be empty, or would the humans have then come back to it? Does that sort of make sense? Because civilization sort of fucked and ended, isn't it? So I don't know if it would work as well. But yeah, maybe.
We'll see. We'll see come May. I don't think they will change the form. I think there'll just be bigger areas, but I don't think we'll be checking a map and getting doors blocked off and things like that.
No.
I don't think it's going to be a Metroidvania type like this is. One thing I did want to just touch upon there's two things actually. I'm surprised that the review scores for this aren't higher, because at present, this just gives some context, on OpenCritic, which is what we use for the Fantasy Gaming League, it's an 84. That's nothing to sniff at. That's a good score. But Death Stranding is also an 84.
Right.
Luigi's Mansion 3 is an 86.
Right.
And this is... And Fallen Order is not in the top 10 for games that have been released in 2019 based on their kind of critical score. Now, I feel like it should be higher up on that. Am I overhyping this? Am I going to hit places and get fed up with it like perhaps you have? Or do you think the critics have been a little bit too harsh on this? And bearing in mind you're the harshest critic because you gave Days Gone a 4 out of 10.
The only problem is...
It's called Setting Views.
As I've got further into the game, I've noticed there's a lot of problems with it. Falling off stuff.
That's you.
No, honestly, it's not.
Wow.
Jumping when he shouldn't be jumping.
That's you again. Pressing the button, surely.
There's a lot of problems with it. Like you'll go up and climb into a new area, the thing will just freeze, and you'll be sat there for 20 seconds waiting for it to unfreeze. Then it kicks on. It just feels like it's just a little bit loose around certain areas of it, and it does let it down a little bit, because I think that if they... Maybe it needed, another 3 or 4 months for him just to sort a few bugs out. There's little traversal bits with, you'll go for a very narrow gap. I don't know if you've had any of those. And he sort of crawls through the narrow gaps. I've noticed a couple of them. BD1, who sits on your shoulder, he's always in the same position. He just goes into the environment.
He clips straight through. He's great. I don't know if he's got some sort of fucking special ability that lets him do that. But yeah, he just scrapes through the wall.
Yeah, and things like that. And when you're sitting there watching it and you're thinking, do you know what I mean? Someone's played through this game, looked at that and thought, fuck it. Do you know what I mean? They haven't. I can't be bothered. Or someone said this is going out in November, come rain or shine. And I know we sort of moan about games being delayed, but I think this could have maybe. It's not a lot, but it's just little bits, and it just seems a little bit loose around the edges and things like that. And I think as you go further into the game, you'll sort of see a few more bits. I know you're on a planet at the moment. And there's certain characters that are well known in the Star Wars sort of universe. When you see them, you'll go, "Fuck me, what has happened to them?" They look like they've been in a right fucking war zone, and everything. It just doesn't. It doesn't look that good.
No, it doesn't, does it?
No, I mean Atkins. He did say that he thought it looked amazing, but I've not been that blown away by it. I don't think it looks that great. And I've got it on like a 4K TV, and I did have it in high performance. Jobby. Yeah, so. Yeah. Something like God of War and Uncharted 4 and Red Dead, they look a lot better than what this does. And even, we spoke about the bird's face, but even his face, it doesn't... His hair looks a bit shit as well. Everything's just a little bit loose. I know he's ginger, but,
I'd agree with that, because I remember I was swimming around in an area of one of the maps, and... It's a really minor thing, but there was some rocks on the right hand side, and the way the rocks were formed was it looked like there was a gap that you could sort of swim, like you could go either just past them or go sort of round them, and it was like a little, just enough room for Cal to fit through. Basically, this little like tunnel almost, not like, but probably 2 meters thick. And I went over to go towards that, thinking, I wonder if there's a secret behind there, and there was an invisible wall.
Yeah,
and it's like that sort of stuff. Why even make the aesthetic choice to have that little archway when you could just put a rock there and I wouldn't have gone over there?
Yeah, you'll find that more and more. That there's a planet and it's got like wooden panels for floor and things like that. And then you're climbing a rope and there's like just a little ledge. And I thought, I'll jump on that. And I jumped on it, went straight through it. It's there, but you can't actually tread on it. And I just think, why even bother then? You know what I mean? I thought that might be a secret or something like that. And it's just little bits like that. It's just tiny little things, but as you go on and on and on, they sort of grate on you. Think, fucking hell, do you know what I mean? This is pretty poor in places. So to go back to the score, I think, 84, like you say, is a respectable score, but it's probably about right. I reckon if they'd have left it a little bit longer, tweaked a few bits on it, got the visuals, are slightly better. I think it could have got a higher score perhaps, but so far, it's a really, really good game. I'm, very impressed with it.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. And I think the reason why it's not been given the time, it feels to me like it could have done with a little bit of extra time baking. But we've got to remember that in a month's time, Star Wars is out.
Yeah, exactly.
And, that's the one thing about having this sort of licenses. Whenever Disney or Lucasfilm, whoever controls the scheduling, I don't think they'd be receptive if EA and Respawn went, oh, we'll put it out in February, shall we? They're like, no, it's not like the Avengers that missed the boat on Endgame. Like, they let that slide, didn't they?
Yeah.
The Avengers game's not out till next year. And you're like, well, that's, the hype of Avengers was last year, or this year even. So they kind of missed that. With Star Wars, they're like, no, it's coming out. And it's not to say that it's broken, but you're right, it is rough.
Yeah.
There are certain bits. I agree with you, I don't think it looks the best. I wouldn't want a photo mode for it.
No, yeah, I can see, yeah.
Death Stranding definitely has a very picturesque type game, but this not for me. But I think that's the real negatives that have come out of it. I think the gameplay is great. I think the design's great. It's a good Star Wars game. It's a single player Star Wars game that's which we haven't had for a while, but it just is a little bit rough around the edges. And who knows, if someone picks this up after Christmas, they may have patched a few things in and made it a little bit nicer. But as it is now, it's still playable. Just that you'll notice that it's not perfect. It's not the same quality level of Uncharted, The Last of Us, God of War, because like the Naughty Dog games, they really and Red Dead Redemption, Rockstar, they set a standard when it comes to presentation.
Yeah, definitely.
It is completely and utterly unmatched. Last question, and then we'll close it down. Is this better or worse than The Force Unleashed?
I would say it's better. I would say it's better.
Okay. Care to elaborate, or we're just going to close it down on that? And then
just because when you saw the video for The Force Unleashed, you knew what it was. And then with this, when you saw the video, like a trailer, let's say, this isn't what you think. It's completely different. It's a lot bigger, a lot more to it. It's, it surprised me how much I've enjoyed it and how big it is and, how good it is in the combat and things like that. It has surprised me.
Yeah. Well, now that you've got your feet wet in this sort of game, we're going to see you go back to Bloodborne and finish that off.
Absolutely not, no.
Like Alien Isolation.
Maybe Alien Isolation, yeah, maybe. That's still beating me. But
it's not even that hard, that one.
Just frightening.
It is frightening, no, I'm not going to lie. But once you get used to it, you'll be like, right, I'm going to take this fucker down. Well, you can't, you have to still hide. But, that's manual saves as well.
Oh, is it?
So, yeah, and there's nothing worse than being, like, just avoiding the Xenomorph, and then just as you're about to get to the save point, it fucking rocks out in front of you, and you're like, I've just been crawling around in the fucking gutters for 10 minutes, now I'm going to have to fucking negotiate this, and then ultimately getting killed. It's not ideal. That's it. That's Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. I don't think we'll bother doing a review of you because you're right near the end anyway. We won't ask for a score, but I think that's a very insightful look at the game. If you're on the fence and you're a Star Wars fan, it sounds like it's something for you. But I think it's good that you've mentioned that it will surprise you in terms of its difficulty and its design. It's probably not what you think it is when you first look at the trailers. So just be prepared to have a little bit of resistance that you might not be used to in a Star Wars game. But Mr. Biff, thanks for joining me.
No worries.
We'll see if this tops out at 65 views.
I'm going for that 17,000.
Well, you'd be lucky to go after that one. I don't know what happened with that. Do you know, you still get every 6 weeks a comment on the video. Just someone else just going, oh, Geralt or whatever.
Chatty. Oh, yeah.
Geralt. Well, you know what the internet's like. It's a bit inwards, aren't they, most people? Including us. That's it. Everyone else, thanks for your time, and ta-da.